You know that promise we're all told that career education is your golden ticket to a better life? Well, what happens when that ticket comes with a price tag that's just crippling, burying you in debt before you even land your first job? It's a huge problem, and it's exactly why the government is stepping in with a new set of rules, all designed to answer one simple question. Is your program actually setting you up for success?
It really is the central conflict for so many students today. You've got the promise of a great, fulfilling career on one side, and this absolute mountain of debt on the other that can feel impossible to climb. So we're going to dig into that gap between the dream and the reality.
And that really brings us right to the heart of it, doesn't it? Is the education you're paying all this money for actually delivering a real return on your investment? This isn't just a question for your personal finances anymore. It's a question the federal government is now forcing schools to answer. To really put this into perspective, just look at this number. For a student at a pretty typical beauty school that relies on federal aid, the total cost, and this is key, once you add in the interest over 10 years, can balloon to over $34,000. That is a massive hole to dig yourself out of right at the start of your career. Okay, so that brings us to the government's response. To try and tackle this exact problem, the Department of Education has brought back and really beefed up something called the Gainful Employment Rule. You can think of it as a whole new accountability system for career education. So what is it exactly? Well, the Gainful Employment Rule, or GE Rule for short, is basically a quality check. It says that for-profit colleges and other career programs can only get their hands on federal student aid money if they can prove they're preparing students for gainful employment in a recognized occupation. The big takeaway here, it's not enough for these schools to just get you in the door anymore. They have to deliver. The rule really has two main tests. The first one is the debt-to-earnings test. It's kind of like a simple financial health check. Are the people who graduate from a program earning enough money to actually afford their loan payments? To pass, their yearly loan payments can't be more than 8% of what they make. It's a pretty direct measure of affordability. And the second test is the earnings premium test. This one asks an even more fundamental question. Does this education actually give you a real economic boost? I mean, to pass, a program's graduates have to earn more than a typical high school graduate in their same state. If they don't, well, you have to ask, what was the point of all that time and money? Now, this rule has had a really rocky history. The main idea has actually been around since 1965, but modern enforcement didn't really kick in until the 2010s. Then, in 2019, the whole thing was completely thrown out, which created this huge regulatory vacuum. This new 2023 version, though, is a major comeback, and enforcement is set to begin in 2025. And get this, programs that fail these tests 2 out of 3 years will lose access to federal aid, period. So what does this accountability actually look like in the real world? Honestly, the best way to get it is to compare two very, very different educational models. Think of it as a tale of two schools with two totally different philosophies and, as you'll see, two dramatically different outcomes for their students. Okay, so on one side, you have your traditional Title IV school. That's just the official name for any school that accepts federal financial aid, like Pell Grants and federal loans. But on the other side, you have a non-Title IV school, which has made a very strategic choice to opt out of that whole federal aid system entirely. All right, let's compare a typical Title IV beauty school to a real-world example, the Louisville Beauty Academy, or LBA. The tuition difference alone is pretty big, right? But the real shocker is the total financial outlay. For the Title IV student, we're talking over $34,000. For the LBA student, it's about $6,700. And the monthly debt payment, almost $300 versus zero. And the financial model doesn't just impact your wallet, it seems to impact your success too. The national industry average for graduating on time at these kinds of schools is a shocking 31%. At LBA, it's 90%. I mean, that suggests a really powerful link between making school affordable and a student's ability to actually finish the program. So, all this begs the question, how is this even possible? How can one school offer what seems like a so much better deal? Well, it's not magic. It's a very deliberate business and educational model. LBA's strategy is actually a pretty clear 4-step process. First, they just opted out of the federal aid system. That simple move let them eliminate the massive administrative costs that are tied to federal compliance, costs that schools, you guessed it, usually pass right on to students. The result is dramatically lower tuition, which leads to the ultimate goal: graduates who start their careers with zero educational debt. And this philosophy is now being backed up by the courts. When the GE rule was challenged recently, a judge's ruling made the principle crystal clear. In upholding the rule, Judge Reed O'Connor said that the whole point of gainful employment is that programs should lead to profitable jobs instead of loan deficits. That is the exact principle LBA is built on.
So, if a school can actually operate this way, delivering better outcomes at a lower cost, and all without federal subsidies, what does that mean for the future of vocational education? Could this actually be a blueprint for a wider reform?
It's really remarkable when you compare the stated goals of the gainful employment rule with what LBA is actually doing. Profitable jobs, LBA has a 90% placement rate with solid starting wages. Check. Protection from debt, their entire model is debt-free. Check. An earnings lift, graduates easily surpass that high school graduate benchmark. It's a perfect point-for-point match. LBA isn't just following the rule's intent, it's living it.
And that leaves us with one last, really powerful question. The existence of a model like LBA's proves that high-quality, effective career education doesn't have to be tied to a system of federal debt. So this raises a huge question for the entire system. What needs to change to make this the norm instead of the exception?